John Calvin once said that the Psalms are an anatomy of all parts of the soul. So what the Psalms do is present the idealistic, the realistic, and the optimistic view of the Christian life. And in a sense, the whole Bible does that. And a preacher must do that as well. And all three of these are important to do. If you only preach the idealistic part of the Christian life, the Romans 8 part, where everything is well and you're growing in the Spirit, you're being conformed to the image of Christ, the love of Christ is very real and vibrant in your heart, you know nothing will separate you from the love of Christ. This is wonderfully idealistic. If you only do that, and you don't talk about the realistic part of struggling with sin, the Romans 7 part, then what will happen is those beleaguered believers who really wrestle with sin in your midst are going to say, I don't think I'm even saved. I just can't live up to that. The bar is way too high. If you only preach the realistic part and you don't preach the idealistic part, then the believer is going to say, oh, I've arrived. There's nothing more for me to do. This is, this tug of war with sin. This is going on in me all the time. I love what the preacher's saying. I can identify with it. But if the preacher doesn't hold up the idealistic part, you see, then the believer isn't stretching out. He's not doing what Paul said, I forget the things that lay behind, and I press forward towards the high prize of the calling of God. He's not seeking to grow in holiness. He falls into kind of a blasé, settling on his lees, a kind of inward contentment that this is all there is to the Christian life, instead of saying, there's more to know, there's more to experience. And if the believer doesn't hear from the pulpit the optimistic preaching of the Christian life, that one day I will be as holy as Jesus is holy, and I'll be married to him forever. I'll be his bride, and there will be a utopian marriage between me and him, and in heaven, this glorious idealism perfected in eternal optimism. If he doesn't preach that, then we can sort of stay settled in this life. We put our tent stakes in the soil too deeply and think this is all there is on this earth. Whereas optimistic preaching about the future teaches us that this life here is just like an introduction to a book, like one page. And eternity is the whole book. And we're living for eternity, always with an eye on eternity. So I need that optimistic view of the eternal destiny of the believer, that God will make amends for everything on that great day, and I will enter the joy of the Lord. So as a preacher, I need to do all three.